Alright, hello and welcome to Daily Space for today, October 2nd, 2019. I am your host, Annie Wilson, and normally on Wednesdays we would do Rocket Roundup, but because Dr. Pamela is traveling, we did Wednesday stuff yesterday, so today is going to be a little bit different. The options for today were Run a Rerun, Matt Bennu, or Don't Start Tinkerbell, or just kind of have an episode of some sort. So I envision today being more of a conversational episode than me just regurgitating news at you, and something that is something that is contemporary, meaning it's happening now and is relevant, is this whole astronaut thing. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do today, is talk about the UAE astronaut, the Emirates astronaut. Did I pronounce that correctly? I don't know. Hazza Al Mansoori. So I'm currently just going to have Tinker whining in the background. I have no idea if or how we're going to translate this into a podcast because I have no written script. None. And we're just going to kind of roll with it today. This should be fun. This should be fun. Anyways, feel free to ask questions during any of this. I do have chat open. I will be keeping an eye on chat. Again, I envision this being kind of interactive. So, yes, Veronica, like a Q&A. So yes, please ask questions. So, first up, I can make a script from the video on demand. DPI, I could. I could also just be like, here's the thing. I may also try to do my best to just edit out all the dog whining. So, here we go. I do have some slides and some images because duh. So this is the logo for the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, or UAE's, space program. And they have been in existence since early 2000s at least. I know for the astronaut program, they put out a call for the for astronauts, and somewhere I have a infographic, but I don't think I put it in the thing. I don't think I put it in my slides. So yes, our intro says it is UAE's version of NASA. They exist in a single campus. Yes, it is not a very big space program. They do not have their own spacecraft. They, correction, they do not have their own rockets. They do have, I think it's 4 or 5 satellites that they do keep track of. There you go, Tinker. Have some bits. They do have some satellites. And they have this astronaut training program, and they have outreach. Everybody has outreach. There's nothing wrong with that. Outreach is important. So, this is an image and green screen fail. So, green screen fail. This is an image of Hazza Al Mansoori, and it is him in a Soyuz. This is the outfit that they wear on the Soyuz capsules when humans go up to the ISS. It's white and blue, and it's got zippers, and behind him is the flag for the UAE, which is red, black, and green. And my green screen decided to just cut out the green part of the flag. So trust me, it's there. It's there. Refsmat asks, is UAE not planning a small interplanetary robotic mission? They do have a Mars mission. I know nothing about it. Refsmat pops in and says, this is the Orlan suit. Thank you for that. And yeah, Ernster points out that the UAE is not a super big nation, to be fair, which is true. It's not. Kevlar asks, do you feel if Kennedy and Khrushchev agreed to a joint moon venture, would that single moment have facilitated a global involvement before Skylab and or the shuttle? Oh, this is not an Orlan suit. Okay, my bad. I think it is the Soyuz suit, Veronica. I know it is indeed the suit that they wear in the Soyuz. I just don't remember the name for it. Kevlar, I really don't know if Kennedy and Khrushchev would have agreed, if they had agreed to a joint moon venture, if that single moment would have facilitated global involvement before Skylab and or the shuttle. Skylab wasn't global, to my knowledge. I think there were only American astronauts on there. Mir was also, to the best of my recollection, I don't know a whole lot about these things. Mir was, to the best of my recollection, just Russian. And the ISS is essentially Russia and the USA coming together, working together to have that joint presence in the sky. So, hello, Slater. Slater USA pops in saying that is one smug dude. Oh shoot, DPI has a correction. There were non-Russian cosmonauts on Mir. Okay. There were non-Russian cosmonauts on Mir. So I admit that I know way more about Skylab than I do Mir, and that's not a whole lot. So, yeah. Okay. So, yes. There's conversation about Mir and Russia, and I honestly, guys, I don't know a whole lot about that, so I'm just going to kind of move on. So there was a question from Hannies asking if Hazza trained there or here. So by there or here, I'm going to assume, did he train in UAE, the US, or Russia? So the next image I have is of Hazza and another cosmonaut trainee. I'm not sure if this is his reserve. I don't know the nationality of the other person, but I do know that Hazza is in this image. They're wearing cold weather gear. It looks like it's winter, and it appears that they are practicing what they need to do when the re-entry part of Soyuz comes back down. And there's some survival training that goes on. They have kind of a lean-to constructed in this image because they're going to be landing in the middle of Pakistan. I think they're going to be landing in the middle of nowhere is quite frankly how it is. So yes, Hazza and his backup, whose name I forget at the moment, did indeed train in Russia through the Russian cosmonaut program. And I know there was also some question about what do we actually call him. NASA calls him a spaceflight participant. UAE calls him a astronaut. You know, because he trained with Russia. Is he a cosmonaut? The answer is yes. Kind of. So Slater USA pops in with space person. I mean, that's also a good way to put it. So the answer to all of these is yes. We can for sure say that Hazza is a spaceflight participant. We can for sure say that he is an astronaut because he has crossed the Kármán line. And we can for sure say that he is a visiting crew member of the ISS because he's going to be there for a very short period of time. And he could potentially be called a cosmonaut because he trained in Russia and did cosmonaut training. the reason why NASA uses spaceflight participant is because UAE is not one of the 15 or so nations that are considered an International Space Station partner. They and because UAE is not a partner of the International Space Station, the people that they send up there, even the astronauts, people who have gone through astronaut training, they're not considered a professional astronaut or cosmonaut. I'm not even joking. That is how it's defined. I spent time looking this up last night because why is all of this? And it is simply because UAE is not a partner of the International Space Station. For those that need a refresher, Japan's a partner, a good part of the EU, so let's just say ESA is a partner, NASA's a partner, and Roscosmos is a partner. Brazil is not a partner. There has been a Brazilian astronaut that has gone up to space. He also was considered a spaceflight participant instead of a professional astronaut or cosmonaut. And oh yeah, Canada. Larry Weird reminded me that Canada's a partner of the International Space Station. Thank you for that correction. Yes, Canada is indeed part of the agreement. Which makes sense. RefSmet pops in with Canada as an OG partner. They sure are, because I don't know why I completely forgot about Canada, because Canadarm is on the space station. Just like JAXA has a module, and the US and Russia have modules. And I know that there have been many, many experiments done by ESA on the space station. Anyways, so somebody had asked, Hanny's asked, does he, meaning Hazza, have a particular mission while he is there? Yes, he has actually done a whole lot of stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute, because I just want to get through some of these photos that I actually did put together for this. So somebody had asked in this particular photo that I have up, what is the orange ball? That is a practice module for the exercise that they're doing. It is not uncommon to have practice modules and practice things, equipment, be colored differently than the real stuff for military exercises. And sometimes it's just so you know it's not the real thing. And that's probably a case for this too. Like, it is very bright orange, very obvious that it is not a real re-entry capsule. It also makes it easier to spot. So, on to the next photo. This next photo is both of the Emirati astronauts sitting at a table eating food. Speaking of food, let me throw some Cheerios at Tinker real quick. They are trying, in this image, they're trying food, space food. And they are not aboard the ISS. They're sitting down at a table. They have like silverware, forks and knives. I can see 1 or 2 cans of food. So they spent, Hazza Al Mansoori and Sultan Al Nahdi. I probably pronounced that wrong. To be fair, his name isn't in the press as much. But anyways, both of the astronauts spent between 1 and 2 hours daily for a week to evaluate about 200 different types of halal food. 2 different types of halal, or not 200 different types of halal food. If you're not familiar with the term halal, it essentially means permitted in Arabic. So halal things are permitted, like permitted foods, permitted activities, etc., etc. The opposite of that is haram, or forbidden. So like pork is forbidden. That's the easiest one I can come up with. But pork is forbidden. That means there's no bacon. There's no things of that nature. Oh, thank you for the bits, Kevlar. And make it rain. There we go. Larry says kosher for Islam, so to speak. Veronica asked, is it like kosher? Falco says kosher, but then Arabic. Yes and no. The closest, easiest equivalent to somebody that's not Jewish or Muslim to associate, you know, this particular dietary needs is kosher, but it's not kosher. There is differences between, essentially between the slaughter and who's allowed to do the slaughter and things of that nature. Because I have asked that question before and I was told no. So there is a difference. From us as outsiders, it doesn't appear to be much of a difference, but there is. Also, I don't think there's any, like kosher, I know you can't mix, I believe if I recall correctly in kosher, you can't mix like meat and dairy. And I don't think that's the case with a lot of Arabic food. I think there is mixing of meat and dairy. So, as Arnstro says, it's what's religiously allowed versus that which is not, which makes the two equivalent in a linguistic sense. But you can't just be, you don't take kosher wine to visit someone that you know is a practicing Muslim because wine and alcohol is forbidden. So yeah, there are enough differences to just be, there's enough differences to trip you up, but I mean, just don't do pork. Don't do pork. Open Cage 5 says, just do vegan, it's fine. Falco says, actually, if you do offer it to an Arabic person, you are compelled to accept it regarding the wine. Wow. He also adds, but it is considered very bad taste. Yes, it is considered very bad taste to present something that is forbidden to something, or to someone who can't have it. But yes, anyways, so they spent 1 to 2 hours daily for a week to evaluate 200 different types of halal food. And no, they're not taking this silverware and china and table with them to the space station. And I can't remember if I do have an image of Hazza eating in space, but I do have an image of, a better image of some of the foods that they're taking. So they are taking, this is, and I'm going to mispronounce them all. The image is of 2 canned foods and what looks like a tube of toothpaste, but trust me, there's food in that tube and not toothpaste. So they had a anyways, Hazza hosted a food night, a cultural night, because I'm just going to mispronounce everything. So he hosted a cultural night where they had foods that are familiar and common in UAE, and some of these are sold, or not some of these are sold, some of these are served during festivals and things of that nature. So these 3 foods that I believe are in this image are madruba, saluna, and balalit. And these were the foods that were served for the Emirati cultural night. And the food that's in the tube, I can't remember. Oh, I don't have what's in the tube, but this is a close-up of the tube and what comes out of it. It is indeed a paste. The cans can be heated up, the tube cannot. Sorry, I stopped to read the chat. Hanny's asked, will this set the future, or will this set the standard for future Middle East mission food? There's actually a whole document that outlines foods and how to pray and other activities that are essentially bits of religious Islamic life that have actually been adapted for space. We'll get to that in a little bit. My feeling, if this is going to set the standard for future Middle Eastern mission food, if it tastes good, why not? I do know that the astronauts on the ISS kind of experience like food fatigue, and I do know swapping food between crews, like especially the US crew and the Russian crew, are common. So I imagine that the cultural night was a nice difference in, you know, menus. Like, hey, here's this new thing. One Girl, Two Beakers asks, hummus. No, this is not hummus. And hummus is, even though it's associated with Arabic food, when I did some poking, it's not originally from that part of the world, but because the UAE was part of many, you know, historic trade routes, hummus and rice and things would have been introduced to them and gradually added to their diet. Hummus is, if I recall correctly, considered a Levantine food, and no, I do not know what that means. So yeah. Jean-Draloon points out that Hazza is the first UAE member on the ISS, but not the first Muslim. The first was, and I am probably going to mispronounce this name, I am so sorry, Ablution Al Suad, in 1985 on STS-51. So, yeah. Refsmat for the rescue and says Levant is Iraq and Syria. So, yeah. Yeah, indeed. But yeah, food night, and Refsmat also adds that hummus and similar spreads are very common in Saudi and Kuwait. They can confirm things of that nature. So, I mentioned that there was a cultural night. Here it is. Here's the image. It is of all 9 humans that are currently in space. I don't know which one is whom, except for Hazza, because Hazza decided to wear for the cultural exchange evening, essentially, a bit of traditional Emirati clothing. He doesn't have, I forget what the name of his head covering is. It isn't what you usually see or what I'm used to seeing, honestly. But it's one that's considered more informal, and it's tied around his head, because the other one that looks like a cloth with a rope that sits on top of it to keep it, you know, from blowing away, there probably would have been issues with that just literally floating everywhere, like long hair. This one, since it's tied behind his head, doesn't have as much of a floaty effect and stays, you know, close by, and it is white. And the other garment that he's wearing that I can't identify is also white. These are, again, you know, traditional colors for men in that part of the world when they're in traditional dress. And if you think about summers in the desert, it makes sense to wear long, flowing clothing that's white to reflect the sun. So that's, from my understanding, that's where all of that comes in. And there's some and in the image you can see some tubes, you can see some cans, but everybody looks pretty happy. Oh, Falco, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. At one point I had been trained on like what all of these different things are, but that was like 10 years ago, so more Cheerios for the dogs. All right. Oof, oof. And so he did He was Jelaba. All right. Pronounce is... So chat to the rescue is saying that he is potentially wearing a Jelaba. Okay. All right, there we go. So he, even though he was a temporary crew member, no, visiting crew member, excuse me, he was able to take a few things to space. Not as many as, you know, somebody that's staying, not as much stuff, not as much mass as somebody that's staying longer, but he was able to take a few things, one of which was this teeny tiny little plush mascot of the UAE space program. It is freaking adorable, and the image I have up now is it just floating in the floating in the foreground with the cupola very blurred out in the background. It is indeed a really cute thing. He also took a 100% silk UAE flag up. I imagine that's going to be put in a museum somewhere. Aside from the food, you know, he took some of his own clothing up. Somewhere I had a list, but I do know that he took this little plush up and a flag. So somebody was asking earlier about, you know, is he doing any experiments? Like, what's his purpose? What's his mission? So I have up an image of Hazza looking at a laptop that's strapped to the wall, because yes, this is how laptops are essentially handled in the ISS. And he's got sensors on him and a harness, and it looks like he's looking at an electrocardiogram. I'm not entirely too sure what's happening here. I do have text though, so here we go. Here's the text that went with this image. Hazza Al Mansoori, during an experiment to study the autonomic regulation of cardiovascular system, central hemodynamics, influence of space flight factors on spatial distribution of the energy of heart contractions. So, yeah, Falco says he has a sensor on his neck, so he's testing himself. Yes, he is performing these experiments on himself. I know they took biological samples before he went up, and they're going to take biological samples when he comes back down, and they'll probably compare them, much like how we and by we I mean NASA has done for astronauts. He had also done a couple other, you know, kind of fun experiments. Well, they look fun, but, you know, they're serious, like fluid dynamics. He did an experiment on himself using, it looked like he had virtual reality goggles on, but it was just to be sensory deprivation, essentially. And that was perception of time passing. Because yes, that's actually a sense that humans have, is, you know, the sensing of the passage of time. So that he was testing that in microgravity. He also, while Hazza's been up there, he has done numerous telecons with Earth. He has done, he has spoken with many people, all of these other things. He's done a lot of outreach. He has recorded a Arabic tour at the space station, which is a first. All right, I think Tinker heard the bits sound. All right, throw bits to the dog. Yeah, and so there's some questions in chat about what is this laptop that he's staring at. And Larry Weird asked, do they still use Thinkpad by Lenovo? I don't know the latest count of what computers are on the ISS, but they did indeed use, for a while, there were quite a few ThinkPads on there. And I can tell on this one that it says Thinkpad, but I don't know if it's by Lenovo or IBM. But there are a lot of laptops that were just bought off shelf and are in the ISS, and that are in the ISS. I think there's over 100. And from the graphics, Bad Panda Bear says that it looks like they're running Windows 9X, meaning 95, 98, or NT4. I don't know. But I would not be surprised if laptops on the ISS did not get operating systems upgrades. So yeah. Falco says 100 laptops, they can have a LAN party up there. They sure do. Ernstro adds that the laptops tend to need more replacing. Hold on, let me back up and try that again. Ernstro says they tend to need replacing more often than on Earth, thanks to the impact of cosmic rays on the electronics. Yeah. Oh, Veronica also pops up with a fun bonus fact of a lot of medical programs do not work with Windows 10 yet. This is real stuff, people. This is real stuff. Anyways, yeah, Hazza's done a lot of stuff in his very short period of time there. He does come back down tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to cover that yet or not. So, the next slide I have up is an image. Hazza has taken many images while he's been up in the ISS, and he took one of UAE during the day from the ISS, which I couldn't tell what I was looking at, but there's this image that he took at nighttime of UAE, and you can see clusters of light from cities in towns and other places, and what look like veins running through that are all lit up. Those are usually highways. And where it gets real dark is either the middle of the desert or, the ocean. So, oh, Kerbal had put in chat the list of the 9 astronauts that I had up. Thank you. So that is all the images I have for you. All the pre-selected images I have for you. I do have some videos, which if I can find them, we can play those. Does anybody have any questions? Now's a good time to ask while I'm kind of rearranging things. And there's one that, yeah, this is the one I think we want to watch. There was one that explained a lot of stuff. Like prayer on the ISS is kind of a big deal. If you're practicing Muslim here on Earth, you pray depending on your, what time zone you're in, and you face the direction of Mecca, which depending on where you are in the world is, a different direction. Hazza's not on the ground, so he has a slight problem. He's not on the ground. He's orbiting the Earth 16 times a day. 16 times a day. And there was a whole lot of, I just want to make sure I have the right window selected. There was a whole lot of, how do we handle this? And that document I talked about earlier, whose name I forget already,
we're here to answer all your questions.
Not yet. Did indeed address all of that. And there are all sorts of things like, there are all a whole lot of specifics that I read about, but essentially, worst case scenario, you just face the Earth. As far as positions, it came down to essentially like a list of priorities or how you would adapt to it, things of that nature. And another thing that's important before prayer is ablution, which for lack of a better explanation, is washing. Wash your hands, your face, your feet. There's not a whole lot of extra water on the ISS to do this, so Hazza has and will continue to perform dry ablutions. That could be literally anything from using a stone or sand, or, as I've recently seen, literally any clean, dry surface to do all of that. So I have the video queued up and I have it ready to play. No, Veronica asked cleansing wipes, and no, it said a clean, dry surface. So I have this video queued up. It's 8 minutes and 54 seconds. It covers a lot of stuff. Some of this information I know you already know. Some of this stuff will be a repeat from what I've said before. But I figured it covered a lot of what is going on with Hazza. So let's play
it. About the UAE astronauts' first trip to the International Space Station. The International Space Station is like a floating laboratory. It's just a little smaller than an American football field, and it's orbiting the Earth at the distance of 400 kilometers above the Earth. It goes around the Earth 16 times in a day, every 90 minutes. So that means everyone on the ISS experiences 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets. ISS is like a giant Lego piece. It was constructed in 1998 and it took around 10 years for it to be fully built. 15 countries work together for this engineering marvel, which is up in space at the moment. What do astronauts do in space? Every year they conduct around 250 scientific experiments on the ISS. These experiments are such that can't be done on Earth. So actually, astronauts are like space heroes. So maybe you're asking, why are we sending an Emirati to the ISS? It is part of the UAE astronaut program launched by His Highness Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai. So in December 2017, he announced the hunt for a UAE astronaut. So it took 2 years and they came up with 2 names out of 4,022 candidates. And these 2 names are Hazza Al Mansoori and Sultan Al Niyadi. Hazza will be the prime crew who will fly to the International Space Station. Hazza will be launched to the International Space Station on September 25 at 5:56 p.m. UAE time. He will be accompanied by Russian Commander Oleg Skripochka and NASA astronaut Jessica Meir. The trip will take around 6 hours from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, and it will dock on the International Space Station at about midnight UAE time, and the hatch will be opened at 2 a.m. Following which, Hazza and the rest of the crew will be welcomed into the International Space Station. So what will Hazza do on the International Space Station? Based on the schedule that the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center gave us, he will conduct 16 scientific experiments on the ISS. Along with it, he will be doing an ISS tour in Arabic, which has never been done before. Hazza Al Mansoori will be launched to space on board a Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft in Baikonur, Kazakhstan. It's a 3-stage rocket that will propel them to space at a distance of 400 kilometers, around 400 kilometers above the Earth. Once Hazza is on the International Space Station, he will be its 240th visitor, making the UAE the 19th country visiting the ISS. He will conduct 16 scientific experiments on board the ISS. Many of these experiments will be on how his body would react to zero gravity. So Hazza is like the test subject. He's putting himself on so much risk just so we can test how much zero gravity can affect the human body. After 8 days on the ISS, Hazza will return to Earth on October 3. There is always one spacecraft docked on the ISS. This provides a lifeboat, if you like. It's like an emergency escape mechanism of astronauts should something happen, should an emergency happen on the ISS. So on the way to the ISS, Hazza will be on board the Soyuz MS-15, but on the way back to Earth, he will be on board the Soyuz MS-12 spacecraft, which the July 20 crew took when they went to space. The Soyuz MS-12 spacecraft will undock from the ISS at 11:36 a.m. UAE time, and it will take around 3.5 hours for the Soyuz spacecraft to land on Earth. Landing will take place at 1:30 p.m. UAE time at the chosen location somewhere 661.5 kilometers away from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. On landing, Hazza will be taken to the Baikonur Cosmodrome for medical tests, after which he will be taken to Moscow for further medical tests. While Hazza is on the ISS, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center wants students to ask him questions. So they'll put up a tent at MBRSC and invite students to pitch their questions to Hazza. All these questions will be answered by Hazza in 4 live space-to-Earth calls. So if you're lucky and if your question is the best one, you might be chosen to ask Hazza your question live. Interested in how astronauts live in space? Well, we have a video for that if you log on to gofnews.com, but we'll still give you a brief explanation on how astronauts live in space. How do they eat? Their food is supplied to them from Earth. Obviously, because there are no shops available in space, all their food has to be pre-packed. This could be freeze-dried food, or it can come in a squeeze tube like a toothpaste, or it can come in a can. How do they drink in space? Astronauts drink from a pouch with a reusable and resealable straw. That can be water, juice, or coffee. In space, they try to save all the water that they can get. That includes one's urine, sweat, and humidity condensate. So what do they do with this? They recycle all this, they process it, and make it into a potable water. So those on the US side of the ISS also drink this recycled water. Now you may be asking, will Hazza drink this recycled water? During our interview with him in Moscow, he said yes, definitely he will drink it because it's potable and there's nothing wrong with it. How do Muslims pray on the ISS? According to IACAD, or the Islamic Affairs Charitable Activities Department, in their primer, Hazza can shorten his prayer if there is a need to, from 4 to 2, for example, for the Duhur prayer, or if he cannot bow or prostrate himself, he can pray in whatever position he can. As for ablution, since there's no running water in space, he can just run his hands on a clean surface, clean dry surface on the ISS. How do they sleep in space? They tuck themselves in a sleeping bag and they have to strap themselves on the sleeping pod. Otherwise, they'll float around. It doesn't really matter whatever position they'll sleep in because there's no sensation of lying down in space. For toilets, there are no flush mechanism in space, but their toilets have suctions that act like a vacuum cleaner. So astronauts just have to put on the leg restraints. Exercise. Astronauts are required to do an average of 2 hours of exercise daily. You might ask why? That's too long. That's because in space, because of the lack of gravity, it affects the bone density and muscle mass. You need to exercise in order for you to keep fit until your return to Earth. What does it feel like to be in space? Astronauts have often reported of experiencing space adaptation sickness or motion sickness, space motion sickness. Well, what's the remedy? Astronauts have been told to just keep still until they get better. Aside from space motion sickness, they also face a host of other risks in space. That includes radiation, isolation, and harsh environments. You might be wondering why we keep sending astronauts and cosmonauts to space. Well, they do that because they conduct a lot of researches that will help improve our life on Earth. If you didn't know, there's so many space tech or space technology that have come about because of these researches. There's so much about space that are around us right now. That includes your camera phone, the water purification method that they use in places where there's no potable water, LED lighting, wireless headsets, computer mouse, weather satellites that help us predict whether there's going to be a typhoon or not. Even mapping software is because of space technology. So the more we study space, the more it can help us improve our life on Earth. Follow our coverage of Hazza Al Mansoori's journey to space on gulfnews.com and our social media pages.
Alright, and that was the video. Let me get things switched around here again. There were some questions during the video. I'm going to see if I can... And there's the cat. I'm going to see if I can answer any of those. Arnstar did point out that the UAE does have a significant medical research capacity on Earth. So the fact that Hazza is performing medical experiments on himself is absolutely in line with their national priorities and abilities. One girl, Two Beakers, asked, is it normal to have such a short trip? These days, no. Typically, when cosmonauts and astronauts go up, they're staying there for at least 3 to 6 months. There have been people that have been up there for a year at a time. I think everything just worked out with this, and this had been planned in such a way that allowed Hazza to be in space for about a week, and there to be a expedition switchover at the same time. So, yeah, it's not common now. It used to be much more common. Arnstro adds that there were several space shuttle missions that were shorter. But yes, ISS astronauts usually do stay much longer. One girl, Two Beakers, states, I don't know, maybe it's just my research, but 8 days doesn't seem like enough time to conduct any kind of meaningful research. So we've done collection of data from for biological stuff. Like, I'm sure that the experiment that he was running on his heart before had been done before. Maybe that exact specification hadn't been done before. Maybe there wasn't time for it. Maybe the perception of time thing had been done for. Maybe it hadn't. And even if it had, it's just another data point. So having their own data plus contributing and building off of existing data is important. Open Cage. I'm sorry, that's my cat. Come here, buddy. Open Cage states, I mean, surely they did some checks before and after. Yes, they did indeed take a whole lot of data from Hazza before he left, and biological samples. That would be everything from blood to urine to feces to whatever else you want to imagine from a biological sample. And they're probably... not probably, they are going to collect biological samples again when he returns. Everybody's getting restless. So I think I got everybody's questions answered. My animals are getting restless and I am trying to keep them quiet because I think we're ripping the audio for the podcast. So I'm going to take this opportunity and do the wall of text. So this has been a production of PSI, that's Planetary Science Institute, working in collaboration with Youngstown State University. Here in Youngstown, I think it's sunny outside, Ohio. We are brought to you by you, so thank you for all of your subscriptions, your donations, your bits, your pledges on Patreon, your merch purchases, all of that stuff. If you can't contribute financially, that's okay. We understand. You can help out by giving us a follow on Twitch. Follows are free. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can download our podcast. All of these things help. I know they don't seem like they help, but they help. You can also inflict us on humans around you. I think that's it. So yes, thank you for your patience for today. I know it was a little different, and it was a little bit different of a format, but I felt like this would be better than a rerun, and you know, it is a contemporary subject, and yeah, I thought it was interesting and I wanted to share, and there just wasn't time to share. Oh my, oh my. Oh yeah, and Veronica says every bit counts. So give me 1 second and I'll turn on the dog cam so those on the stream can see what happens when you follow or do bits. All right. Make it rain. Oh no, I forgot to switch. Okay, there. Now you can see a dog butt. And more Cheerios. And make it rain. So yes, that's how we think. Think everyone watching on Twitch live. And yeah, so there is indeed a weekly space hangout tonight. We are going to simulcast. I think that's how we pronounce it. Simulcast. We're indeed going to simulcast it. Anyways, it's simulcast. I can't. Thank you, Bombadil. I think you all enjoy watching me struggle to pronounce things. Anyways, we are also going to be broadcasting that here on our Twitch channel. Kevlar asks, will the pets be on tonight? I have no idea. I will be on tonight. I have no idea what I'm in for. Susie says Annie's going to be on Weekly Space Hangout next week. It is this week and next week that I am going to be on Weekly Space Hangout, and then I won't be on for a while. We don't schedule co-hosts out too far, but yeah, it will be my first time, and I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. Falco asks, how many hours from now? I don't know. I don't even... Okay, there we go. It'll be 6 hours from now. 6 hours from now, so that gives me time to, like, try to take care of the animals. And yes, Planetary Pan says Annie is my Weekly Space Hangout partner next week. Indeed, it'll be me and Beth on Weekly Space Hangout next week. So yeah. I think that's literally all. I know, DPI, I know it's not a good time for Europeans, but Weekly Space Hangout is archived on YouTube, just like this is. Daily Space is also archived on YouTube. And I don't know if there's a podcast version of Weekly Space Hangout, so yeah. Even if you missed the live version, I know it's a terrible time for Europeans. It'll be there. I understand 6 hours from now is a really long time. So, alright, I have a cat I need to take care of, even though he is very happy just sitting in my lap getting pets. And all of this other stuff. Live is live! Yes, Falco, live is live. Watch me fumble through my first Weekly Space Hangout. So, thank you all again. You all are amazing, and, yeah. Y'all are awesome. Anyways, can I have my hand back without you jumping down? Alright. We'll do it this way. Anyways, have a wonderful insert time day. Have a wonderful insert time of day here. Again, thank you for your patience, and I will see you all later tonight. Bye. As I awkwardly roll the credits. Who are we gonna raid? But for real, bye.